Buckeye Talk, bringing you the game time decisions for Ohio State's home opener for the 2021 season against the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks have invaded football practice here today at the Woody Hayes Athletic Complex, the day we're recording this, but on the day of the game, the Ducks are invading Ohio Stadium. Stephen, what is your game time decision? This is kind of the important deciding factors that we think are going to be sort of pivotal in who wins this game. Stephen, what is your game time decision?
The problem is I hated that that's where you went, and I didn't think that's where you were going to go, even though it was clear when you were setting up the tripod that you were trying to get the geese into this. But my game time decision is based on the type of passing plays they're going to kind of put out there. Last week we saw a lot of short passes where the wide receivers had to do a lot of work, a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, and even some of the deep passes, there was still work to be done yards after the catch wise, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So I want to see how much more often we see that this season, and especially against Oregon, where the defense might be a little bit better. It's going to be a step up in defense, and we saw C.J. Stroud maybe struggle in the first half, being a little bit more accurate with the ball down the field. Do we see more of this, maybe, line of scrimmage stuff, these RPO stuff where it's quick and easy passes where Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson have to do more work with it? Do we see more running back screens where it's just a dump off to a Travion Henderson? And maybe it doesn't go for 70 yards every single time, but he takes – basically I'm asking, do we see a lot more often where it's a 2 or 3 yard pass that gets turned into a 12, 15-yard game because there are so many offensive weapons who can do stuff with it? So I'm going to be tallying that. There's no real tally for it in college football. You have to kind of do it yourself until PFF comes out with this stuff usually around Sunday or Monday. So I'm going to be keeping a tally of that. How many yards after the catch happen when we're talking about passing and receiving yards on Saturday?
Do you think that is determined by what Oregon shows Ohio State defensively? Is it determined by the confidence Ryan Day has in calling plays for C.J. Stroud?
I think it might be a little bit of both. We saw it with Minnesota where they were giving that stuff up anyway, but I think part of it was Ryan Day wanted to get C.J. Stroud a rhythm early. He came out immediately. I think the first 3 plays of the game were throws, but they were easy throws just to get that quarterback who'd never thrown a pass before a rhythm. I think he wants to do that with a brand new starting quarterback for a couple of weeks until he settles into some things. So it might be a little bit of both. Oregon might give it, but also it might be what Ryan Day wants to take, especially in the first half.
So I'm going to do the other side of the ball. Ohio State had some vulnerabilities on defense in the first game. There was some tackling that got away from them. There were some, playing such a young secondary, they were going to give up some plays. And we don't know yet what the status is going to be. You'll find out. Come to cleveland.com/OSU Saturday morning, and we'll be giving you the status report when it comes out. Or get the text, 614-350-3315. It'll come to your phone as soon as they release that. But without knowing that, I still think this is a defense that's going to give up some yards. It's going to give up some plays. It's going to give up some points. What Ohio State did against Minnesota that kind of helped counteract that was take the ball away. Obviously, the big strip sack by Zach Harrison that Haskell Garrett takes back. You almost had another pick for a long return by Josh Proctor that got called back by a penalty. This is, I think, going to be a aggressive defense. It's going to get in there and mix it up and make some plays. It's going to give up some plays, but I think they've got to still do the other thing. They've got to take the ball away. I'm going to say 3 times against Oregon. That kind of helps, rile this home crowd up, this crowd that's been waiting for a game for, almost, 600 days or whatever it's been since they last had a home game. But I think more importantly, it helps kind of keep injecting life into this team and building confidence back for a defense that's probably going to be up and down at times. There's going to be times where they're going to bend. I think Oregon's going to be able to move the ball on the ground a little bit, the same way Minnesota did, because they've got 2 talented running backs. They've got a quarterback who's more mobile. That's a different challenge than Ohio State faced this past week. Don't be surprised if Oregon's up there in that same kind of scoring range that Minnesota was, in the high 20s, low 30s even, and maybe Ohio State has to score a lot of points to win this game, but I think they will, and I think in part because of, I think this defense can take the ball away, give it back to the offense, and kind of help fuel things that way.
Quick question with that. The turnovers, do they need to be interceptions, or do we need to see Zach Harrison or Tyreek Smith or whoever get more of those strip sack situations?
Well, I don't think it necessarily matters. I think another thing that you need to see at some point of a season is guys in that kind of middle area making plays on the ball in the run game. That's easier said than done. Look at me. I'm out here, this schlubby guy, telling guys they need to go out and make, strip the ball out of guys in the middle of a run in Power 5 football. But you got to do it at some point. I think those are huge game-changing plays, and I think that's really the important part. I mean, obviously, when you can go in and get a strip sack and return it, that's a demoralizing thing, like what you do, what they did to Minnesota last week. And that play where if Proctor's turnover or interception would have stood up, that was almost like a 10-point swing or whatever, Minnesota driving and then Ohio State being able to put points on the board in some way there. So those are big, but I think just interrupting drives, for the opponent and making them make extra drives to get any points on the board is going to be big for a defense that is probably, like I said, I think right now at this point of the season, they're still figuring out who their best 11 guys are. They're still figuring out who their 11 healthiest guys are. And until they get those things solved, they're going to be a little bit vulnerable, and the takeaways can kind of help counteract that. Come back to cleveland.com before the game, during the game, after the game, a lot of analysis, a lot of news. Get the text, as I said before, 614-350-3315, and come back for the post-game Buckeye Talk podcast. We'll be breaking down and answering all of your questions after the game.